And then we have Garrison schoolwork.
Years,
So
I got
so
stories to tell.
all right. Jordan, so you're right. Jordan, obviously a Bulldog fan, a big #1 ranked football team in
I
America.
went to UGA.
There you go.
I'm not much for football.
Go Dogs.
But I definitely.
She's definitely an REM fan.
Go Dogs.
I went to school when REM.
Meeting to order. Well said. Good evening and welcome to the December 13th regular meeting of the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District. Our first item of business, as always, is the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Rather than get right into, well, it's my pleasure to say, we have a brief musical prelude in keeping with the season, and Mr. Feig will introduce it. This is a very pleasant way to start the meeting.
Well,
Mr.
thank you.
Feig, the floor is yours.
Thank you very
Stage,
much
so
for
to
it.
speak.
Well, I'm like, this is kind of the stage. That'll work. Thank you very much for having us come in and perform for you. Coming here in the middle of the September year, I was thrown into lessons and was intrigued by two individuals who have been practicing nonstop and have been an inspiration to keep me focused in my education studies. Jasper and Jake are fifth graders now and consistently show effort, and I wanted to bring a little holiday spirit to you with a little, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Excellent.
Boys, would you mind coming up? I also invite you to tomorrow evening's performance. This is not on the concert, this is just for you. But we have a whole program with a wide variety of performances, some Tchaikovsky, some singing, some dancing. We'll have the fifth graders dancing on the stage, so it'll be a blast. All right, boys, you ready? Nice and slow. 1, 2. Bravissimo, thank you for your time. That's all we can do. Just a little more, that's all we can do for now. You have to come tomorrow night.
Teaser, right?
Yeah.
We can't do every meeting.
Sorry?
2 weeks, every meeting.
Yeah, every day? All right. You keep giving me
How are you?
No problem.
Well done.
Thank you very much. Have a
Take
good day.
2 cookies, take 2 cookies.
Only 2?
As many as you want.
All right, well, from the sublime to regular business, I suppose. What's he going to say?
That's
with
a
your
nice
thought?
introduction.
No. The sublime to Laura's presentation, superintendent's remarks.
Good evening, Garrison. Thank you, Douglas Feig and Jasper and Jake. That was wonderful. What a great way to start a board meeting. I wanted to just take some time today to give you district priority updates on facilities and technology. Our facilities, we had our final PISA project walkthrough and forum, and PISA project is our capital project that they're working on, and it stands for Preservation, Innovation, Safety, and Accessibility. And that was on December 6th. About 15 people showed up. It was a nice representation of the community. There were parents, current parents, past parents of students who attended the Garrison School, some folks from the Desmond Fish Library, community members, staff members, and a board member. So it was a nice mix of people. And lots of good ideas were generated and lots of healthy, difficult conversations about what our needs are and what our needs are not. So we look forward to having more of those discussions during our task force committee meetings and just folks that we see in the neighborhood. I do want to tell folks that if you weren't able to make any of the forums or walkthroughs, we would be more than happy to assist in scheduling meetings with you individually or in small groups. We want you to come out. We want to hear your voice. We want to hear your ideas. We want to hear your concerns. We want to listen to your hard your hard questions, because that's what's going to inform a capital project that really meets the needs of our community. So please give me a call, text me, email me, and I will be happy to meet with you and inform you more about the capital project and walk you through the facility. We also just had our task force, which is a mix of staff members and community members, to look over the priorities that we have set and to sort of start putting them in a high priority and some things that maybe we want to add or not add. So we're just kind of going through the list and seeing what are those, where do they fall on that list. And that's the work that we're going to continue to do in our next one, which is our third meeting on Tuesday, and we have another one planned in January. It's hard work, it's good work, it's fun work, it's creative work, it's frustrating work, and I think through all of this time and work together, we're going to come up with a plan and be ready to propose to the boards as soon as we feel it's ready to go. On the technology end, I just wanted to remind you that we have a one-to-one Chromebook initiative in grades 3 through 8. We have clusters of iPads in K2. There's Google Classroom that's being implemented in grades 3 through 8, and that's where your curriculum, lessons, resources for students, student work lives, and can be accessed by both teachers and students. Our smart boards, which are in every classroom, are now out of warranty or almost all out of warranty. So the technology committee has been working hard in researching and demoing other kinds of LCD interactive displays. And we as a team have decided that new line, a 70-inch display for each classroom, is really going to fit all of our needs. The warranty is great, the display itself is great, it's got some tools that are innovative and also are aligned to the existing tools that we have, so there's not a big migration work or background work behind it. Also with technology, we have ongoing and differentiated training. Everybody's coming to the table with different experiences and expertise. We're making sure that we differentiate our support for our teachers and providing professional development that's targeted to their needs. So Nancy, who's our technologist, sent out a survey to see how we want to use our next professional development day in January, and teachers identified various programs, applications, and Google components, and we brought it down to 3, which include Wixie, eSchool Data, and Google Drive. So on January 10th, teachers can choose where they'd like to gain some training to strengthen their own craft and enhance the learning experience for their kids. We've also installed Go Guardian software on Chromebooks, and that's to monitor student usage, make sure they're doing the right thing at all times, but also it's a way to monitor the usage of tools to determine whether we want to keep them, or we want to add to them, or that there might be a different tool that is newer and better and can do more things for our students. And also it informs our budget. Are these the things that are being used in the school? Do we want to keep them, or do we want to drop them and use that funding elsewhere? So those are just some highlights that were in our technology district and our facilities district priorities. In January, so I did want to just bring up some presentation ideas as we move forward into the winter and spring. I was thinking about last year we had a discussion around the BOCES services, and we were approving their budget, and some folks didn't feel comfortable approving the budget because they didn't have enough information. So that may be a presentation that we'd like to do. It would have to happen in January because their budget's approved. When do they seek approval? Do you remember? Soon after that.
It's earlier in the spring than
So we can, and also thinking in May and June, that's a nice time to revisit data that we've been collecting throughout the year, whether it's through Fountains Canal, through Star 360. It can be anecdotes from teachers, the literacy work that we've been doing here on the ground. So we started out, teachers did a fine job in presenting the work that's happening on the ground, and circle back to them, to John, to see the gains that we've made, and also the work, the draft steps that we need to do moving forward. And lastly, Sue and I have started to collect data around the budget. Budget season's right around the corner, so we've been meeting with our building leader, John. We've met with special ed folks, and we have met with our director of facilities just to start getting our head around what the needs are in the building, instructionally, and staff-wise and kid-wise. So we're collecting that data, and we'll have lots of good ideas when we start doing those budget workshops that everybody's very excited
We
about.
have a budget calendar on the agenda tonight for approval.
Yes.
Could I ask, could we move that microphone a little bit away from Beth? When she's typing, I maybe picked up on that mic, so I'm hearing a drumming noise in the back of
It might
everything else.
be this,
And it might be that mic too, but let's move that one and find out.
that one.
Now can you, I hear it too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is
I'll just
no, that's okay.
type in midair.
Sorry, Laura.
Oh,
Did I interrupt or were you done?
and just lastly with the presentation, we traditionally have Nancy Romano come in and give us an update on the technology plan. Our technology plan is in place, it's being implemented with fidelity, but I'm wondering, are there other things that you'd like to learn or know about concerning technology, whether it's student work, teacher work, the tools themselves? You don't have to give me an answer now, but just think about what you would like that presentation to look like, sound like, feel like. And that's it. Good stuff happening.
Questions for Laura? Let me suggest the range of substantive discussion topics is basically at our disposal. So if there was something anything in addition to the ones that Laura just described that any of you would like to hear about, let's sort of collect them, send them to Laura, distribute them on ourselves, and let's identify what we're going to. Let's have at least 3, right? 4, what? 3 or 4 at least in the second half of this year.
Do you think
Technology seems fine, but
Do you think we should submit them to Laura or ideas?
I don't know how.
Yeah.
Let's figure out a way to share that so that we can reach some consensus fairly quickly about what we'd like to have as substantive discussion topics for the balance of the year. So,
Laura, just one, not a new topic, but on the technology, it would be helpful if it's put in the context of why is this important to the curriculum, to learning. I think in the past, we've sometimes had technology discussions that are like, we need smart boards because we need smart boards because they're modern and cool, not here's what we're doing and here's how we're trying to engage and teach kids. And in order to do that, we need technology because God knows at least my kids have plenty of access to technology and are perfectly adept at using it without the school. So I would view our question as how are we using that as part of a way to teach them, not because we got to keep up with the school down the road that has 80-inch smart screens or
I would
Exactly.
second that with Derek.
Yeah.
I would second that. In areas, especially, how are we using them in areas where we can't do it through any other means? For instance, reaching internationally, whether it's working off of a NOAA website or something like that to monitor sea rise levels, or any number of kinds of projects that I read about often happening in the middle schools. So, the place, how is technology actually enhancing what we're able to offer curricular-wise, experientially?
I'm just going to clarify what we're talking about. We talked about coming up with some sort of overarching rubrics.
One
of
of-
what we want to.
One of the things we said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the
No,
question,
no.
but I think one of the things we said earlier this year was that we would like to sort of divide our time, the meetings we have, between those like tonight, which are almost exclusively the business of running the district, and those that where we would focus on a particular topic of interest to us, of importance to the district, of interest to parents and others who might be, by virtue of the topic, induced to come in and become more engaged. So technology, sure, performance and data, a year-end update. There are other things as well. Some we did last year. We did the opioid roundtable. So things like that, so that we're not just always doing
I think it's great.
this.
So what you want us to come up with to.
Laura suggested 2, right? Did I miss one?
I did,
You said
technology we've done
and
traditionally.
technology and performance or data at the
And
end of the
data,
year.
and then also, if only the BOCES, if you want to know more about
That
their
one.
services. And
Well,
I think
I
that's a
think we should
smaller
go
one.
Beyond that. I mean,
That's what I'm saying. The sky is essentially, you're limited by what the consensus of our imaginations. But yeah.
Right. I mean, something that really gets to the vision of what we're doing, basically, right?
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
let's-
okay, we
let's-
can be
let's
more
structure
specific.
some
Yeah,
substantive
and the sooner we
conversations.
know, the more time we have to prepare.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that would be,
So like opioids last year, like performance, our last meeting, these are, you get good conversations going and it's worth the time. So anyway, that's it.
thank you.
Other things?
No, that was great.
John?
Good evening, board, good evening, Garrison community. To start off with cold and flu season approaching, I was asked offline about some of our processes for covering teachers when they're ill through substitute teachers. So I just wanted to start off my comments by just reviewing some of the things that are in place to make sure that there's a continuity of instruction when, for whatever reason, a teacher is not able to attend work for a particular day. It's always a trick of a district to find the sweet spot of a number of qualified substitutes who are available and willing to work in a particular district, having enough without having too many that they're not employed and they start to lose interest. So I'm happy to report that right now we do have going into this part of the school year where we often require a reserve of subs of 30 very talented people who are waiting in the wings. To let you know that those people that come to us new have to be interviewed by the building principal, by myself, that I interview them with what I feel are the pertinent questions that say that they have the attributes necessary, the predispositions necessary to take on the task of being a substitute. We ask them what areas of the building that they're comfortable substituting in. We do an extensive reference check to make sure that they come positively recommended from previous employers. We look for certified professionals. In the case of our current list, about 50%, about 15 out of the 30 are certified. Of course, those certified teachers are the ones that we look to when we're replacing a teaching position. However, half of our uncertified substitutes right now, I would say, are long-standing substitutes who have been with our district for many, many years. So even without that certification, have a deep knowledge of our procedures, of our pedagogy, of our students, and have been and come often highly recommended by teachers as a good person to take over for a day. We've also just recently completed a substitute handbook, which is a written document that didn't exist, to my knowledge, in the past, to really thoroughly outline the expectations of the substitute and to make sure that a lot of the details and procedures that would be needed to follow during a regular day or in the case of an emergency, those kinds of things are documented so we can apprise them of them. Those are now available to new substitutes electronically, so upon hiring, they're emailed through PDF, and we also have hard copies available for them. So that's just a quick update on substitutes, and I'm happy to take any questions. Following up on Laura's updates with regards to the district priorities, I also want to just take this moment to just more than an update, more of an anecdote of some exchanges that Laura and I have had with our literacy consultants. So once again, we have two literacy consultants through Words of Advice Consultancy, Holly that works with our K2 team, and Melanie who works with our 3rd through 8th grade teachers. And just in our conversations with them this very week, just talking, it was very, very rewarding to hear them talking about the positive experiences that they're having with our teachers. That they're just talking about how our teachers are excited, how they're embracing the new methodologies in teaching reading and writing, how when they get together, they're very, very impressed by the level of thoughtful discussions that are having, both around curriculum planning and how to implement new pedagogy. Once again, a lot of the time is spent at this moment in the consultancy with those consultants in the classroom modeling the effective practices of this particular approach to reading and writing. And teachers in turn say how beneficial it's been, how they're able to watch what the consultants are doing, transfer that practice to their own practice, and start to have really very meaningful experiences in unfolding what's a brand new curriculum for our teachers. We have a lot of our team, especially on the elementary level right now, finishing their 2nd Teachers College unit, which is in nonfiction reading and writing. I was able to see a wonderful lesson where there are learning progressions, which are basically attributes of effective writing at different grade levels. that use the vocabulary of instruction that they're learning and are given to the students so they could start to not only self-assess their own writing, but to start to look at what specific attributes have to be added to their writing so that they could start reaching the next level of writing for them. So, you know, I saw that, and I have to say it was very, very impressive to watch that in action. And in turn, teachers are telling them they feel good, they feel good about their growth, they feel good about the growth that they're seeing their students achieve in terms of their performance. And teachers are asking for more professional learning. They're asking if there's a possibility to add days. They're also already inquiring about what the plan could be for next year. So those are obviously very, very positive signs that we're on a good and effective track that teachers are appreciating. Heard from our 5th grade teacher 2 things from conferences. From parents. They'll know who they are if they hear it, but they'll remain anonymous for this principal's report. But one parent said to our 5th grade teacher, my daughter is finally reading. She's figured out that what she needs to read at her level in order to enjoy it. This is 5th grade, when a lot of times in reading we're reaching a do or die moment. You know, where if they're not getting it by a certain age, there's a good chance that some doors cognitively are starting to close in terms of the acquisition of reading. To hit a 5th grader at that moment and say, we did it. The parent says, my kid reads all of a sudden with a passion that hasn't happened before. That's success. Another parent said, my son always loved nonfiction, but now that he's reading at his just right level, he's devouring fiction books as well. Another sign of success when we're looking at a boy, and of course a lot of times they like informational text, but to open up the world of fiction to that boy is another just sign that there are very, very positive anecdotal indicators that we are on a really good track right now.
Thank you. Questions again?
Just when you're mentioning level, you're saying these anecdotes coming, you're saying that my child's reading at a level that's right for them, right? Or that level's is determined by Fontes Pinnell, right? I just want to wrap that around to the curriculum.
So that is.
Could you articulate? I know what you're saying, but could you articulate for everybody at home,
Yes.
the rest of the board, that when they say that there's levels that are determined based upon, you know, informal assessments and formal assessments, and then they get to choose the books that they work on, and from there they can build a confidence level so that they become more persistent.
So you hit the nail on the head. One of the things that we've talked about to the community and to the board is that with the Fontes and Pinnell assessment system that we administer 3 times in a year, we're finding 2 different levels. One that's a good independent level for them to be able to feel confident in independent reading, and an instructional level that tells us where we could push them to, you know, get them growing. So that's certainly something that that we have information on in terms of where they're reading. But part of the pedagogy is also getting students to be able to encounter a book regardless of if they have a letter of what level they are, and start to look for what indicators they should know in their head to monitor whether that's a good book for them. So there's some certain features that we teach about what is a just right book that they can actually just do on their own as well. So it's twofold. It's a few things that work and it's working.
I love that the parent used just right book. So that the parent is using the language of our curriculum as well.
David?
John, the presentation we had on K-5 pedagogy on the Teachers College curriculum was really excellent. And I think I'm speaking on behalf of other board members, wondering if we're going to have some kind of comparable presentation for middle school, for what's happening in middle school. And is that something we can look forward to in the
I think that if, you know, going back to the discussion of what you'd like to see, you know, if that's something that you decide you'd like to have us do a presentation on, you know, we'd be happy to put something together.
Along those, I'm sorry.
No.
Are you done?
You're done. You're done.
Her time? Her time.
Always.
Her time.
No, go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, because I'm gonna jump back to substitutes for a minute, so if you wanna
Okay.
keep going with this.
Did you have any, we had a pretty intense meeting, I think I remember, there was some intensity. I'm wondering if you had any time to reflect a little bit on the data analysis, whether there's something else that has come to light or some sort of reflection you had about that presentation that you think, this is what I would have liked to have said, this is what I should have said but I didn't say, this is what, based upon our conversations, this is where I am regarding this particular priority. I'm asking you if you've afforded a reflective
Just read this
experience
again,
here.
I would be happy to take all of what you just said and play it back on the video and prepare that as the basis of my next principal comments. How's that sound?
I just thought you might have had it off the cuff. You might have, like something woke you up in the middle of the night, like, I should have said that. Okay. Fair enough.
Unless there's some critical feedback
I
that
don't.
you'd like to
I
offer.
don't got it. Gordon.
That's just you, James. Thank you for the information about hiring substitutes. My questions to go along with that is trying to get some more information. Is if there is an opportunity for our substitutes to go through any training, both educationally and which I imagine is difficult to do, consisting of 9 grades plus specials, but specifically targeting the workings of our school. Is there any review that happens throughout their time here of their performance? And if there is there a ranking in which our substitute caller, are there preferential subs? It helps to understand that there's a certain number that are certified and uncertified and where those fall. But within that, is it luck of the draw? Is it who can accept? Are there preferred people? And how do you handle conflicts when somebody comes to you and says, my child had an issue with a substitute? What does that change for them?
So a lot of that process basically happens in the relationship between the substitute and the teacher. So a lot of what I hear in terms of feedback happens as a result of basically the follow-up between the substitute notes that happened, that are left for the teacher, that reports to the teacher how everything went, the reports that students provide the teacher. So usually it's the vehicle for assessment usually happens through the actual the classroom teacher. That teacher then oftentimes develops a sense of what's a good fit for a classroom and asks the substitute caller, who right now is Christopher Caliendo, whether a specific substitute that they have found to be a good fit for their classroom is available. And we do try to actually offer that kind of a prioritization, to meet the needs of the specific teachers. Any kind of a conflict which do arise from time to time then obviously goes directly through me. There have been times that when we have dismissed substitutes because of performance or behaviors, there are certain times where we have deemed it necessary to focus job assignments for substitute teachers to where we feel it meets their strengths, and avoid the place where we feel it doesn't really meet their strengths.
Have you sorry, have you considered the possibility of using student teachers from Vassar, New Paltz, whatever, to come in and really be part of the class and be able to pick up organically where the teacher is if the teacher's not there?
We do regularly employ student teachers. Right now, I think our strongest relationship is with SUNY New Paltz. And we do quite often have student teachers who are in the building. And yes, they often do not replace a substitute teacher, but on those days when the substitute teachers are there, being that they've been part of the classroom environment, they're very, very adept at stepping in and really helping to make sure that there's a continuity of instruction. So we definitely do that. The other thing that oftentimes happens is I was talking about non-certified teachers. Oftentimes a lot of the non-certified teachers we have are students who are on break oftentimes people who are just newly graduates from programs who have not yet reached the threshold of obtaining their certification, but are in an entry-level position of their career, and we're giving them an opportunity to take a lot of their academic learning and sort of give it a proving ground through some professional practice.
I mean, that sounds like a great opportunity for us. Is that something that can be expanded? I was thinking of it in terms of instead of substitutes, but maybe you can't do that. I don't know what the laws are about that. But is that a program that you could aggressively look to expand?
We aggressively no, because
reach out.
because we really it's taxing on a teacher, I must say. It's not something. It requires extra professional attention on the part of the teacher, because now, in addition to them learning the new Lucy Calkins units and trying to do a faithful job with all of the things we're putting on them with the technology, they're also responsible for really mentoring a new professional. So to say we can really do it with any kind of an arduous approach, I think is not reasonable, because even the people that really want to have student teachers will do it for a year and say, I just need a couple of semesters without one. So I think we're doing it to the level of which we're capable of with our small faculty, and I think we do it well when we do it.
John, this is a question as much for Beth, I think it's for you, but just and I apologize for never having asked this before, but since we're coming up to budget time, we have a budget for substitutes, a substitute comp budget every year. So we know we're paying that out in real time as the substitutes are going. So first question is there a seasonality to that, or do we run pretty much straight line 10 months, the same sort of outlays? And
every year is different. I mean, right now, what we have in the budget is about $75,000. Last year, we went well over that. For a lot of different reasons. We had a lot of leaves last year. I would say every year is different. If you're talking about an everyday, $85 a day sub, they're, probably in the springtime, you see a lot more subs in here than.
Is there a metric that business managers use to look at the number of subs we use per student, if that's the relevant metric, or number of classes or teachers or something, per day per year, and we measure that against what the norm is across the state? So trying to get a sense, is there a metric that allows a school to say, is there a metric that allows a district to say, we have a higher use of substitutes than the state average, whatever that state average might be?
I'm not aware of it, but I could definitely look into it, or at least put the question out there to the local districts, to the BOCES, and see how.
Because we touch on the substitute, we touch on the topic on a regular basis, and I'm just trying to, as much as we do, this is an interest to the board, I'd just like to get a sense of, what our run rate looks like, how our use of substitutes, are we in line with, are we higher, are we lower than other schools, state, or peer group, whatever?
I'm not aware of any report that does that, other than I think we can probably do a survey through the BOCES.
No, I'm not asking you to do it.
Okay.
I clearly don't want to commission a survey, but I'm just, look, there's a metric for virtually everything else we do.
Right.
In fact, there are multiple metrics for everything else we do, and I'm just curious, as business managers, when districts look at their substitute line every year, and say we got this much in the budget, is that the right number, or
Well,
what's a right number relative to our size, relative to the number of teachers, kids?
We actually did increase that line. I mean, that line was 50,000 for many years. We increased it about 2 or 3 years ago because we were finding that we were using more substitutes here. Plus, we increased the rate slightly.
Right, the rate, we're using more stuff. So I
Yeah.
guess
So, I mean, there was 2 different reasons on that.
Right. But the question is, are we using, when we moved it, was it because we were proportionally using more subs than you would expect to use at a school this size, number of kids, number of teachers?
I just think it's the nature of what's happening in school districts in general is that with first it was Common Core, now we're going into new reading programs and stuff. We have a lot more professional development that's going on in school districts. And that's in general, that I hear from all school business officials, there's just a lot more professional development. I see it more, I've been in this district 10 years, I see more and more where the professional development is happening in the building. So the teachers are here in the building, and yet there's a substitute in for them because they're being, you know, trained
Yeah,
and
it is,
stuff.
it is.
So
It's
I
always
see
worth
it
bearing
more
in
and
mind,
more.
right, that some of the reasons for substitutes are not simply because people are taking personal days.
No.
It's because
I-
we're sending them out for more and more personal development, I get it, that's
Yeah,
worth it.
I mean, I see a big increase in that. I mean, as far as absenteeism in the district, I mean, that's something that's a report that can be easily run, but I
Yeah,
don't
that
know
would
if that's on the rise or not. I definitely see professional development on the rise, and I see the numbers for professional development on the rise. So in turn, substitutes are on the rise. It just makes
It's
sense.
also impacted by leaves of various varieties,
Right,
and that has to do with hires and retirements and all that. Right.
Okay, listen, it doesn't bear belaboring, but I would.
The only thing I wanted to belabor is, John, did you say that, what's the review of us, like, when the substitute's done for the day?
It's their expectation that they write a report.
They write the report.
Yes. And that report is submitted to the teacher, and the teacher is responsible for then basically, you know, assessing whether what was supposed to be done
Was
according to the
done.
plan.
But that's more of an academic measurement, or a measurement of the academic, or the curriculum delivery, correct? Like that's, you're assessing whether they delivered the curriculum or not. I'm wondering, how do we assess?
It's behaviors as well.
Okay.
I think it's the full range of what happens, and maybe you can, I mean, may ask Jen Pitts is here, might be to ask her basically what the process, how it goes for you.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, is that they will write a brief, summary or report of what went on throughout the day, or I get notes about who left early, who came late, who has lessons, that kind of stuff, so they can be held accountable for what they've missed.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about whether we know that that the adults we're putting with children are managing those children professionally. I'm wondering how we're assessing that. Is that something we figure out midway during the day? Like, how's that substitute doing? How's that going? How do we find out when something goes wrong? That's sort of the worst case scenario situation. How do we find out if something goes wrong? Does it come from the student? Does it come from,
So I think they're
not like terribly wrong, but like
I
just
think
not
they're-
optimal?
I think they're
You know?
talking about a situation that really exists in two tiers. We have those people that are new to a system, so like this year we actually took on a lot of new people. If somebody's new, obviously I'm gonna be a lot more present to make sure that there's an orientation process. However, the vast majority of our 30 subs are people that have either are prior employees or have been subs here for probably over 10 years. And they're quite a known entity within the school culture. They're really almost part of the staff, a lot of the subs. So those people are known, established entities, and I'd say that that's actually, when you look at the subs that are here on an ongoing basis, they are people that we know very, very well.
I have a follow-up question. In your orientation, do you talk with substitute teachers about children who have an aid, or children who may have behavioral issues, or anything that the substitute might need to know about?
There is not a formal way that we do that, and one of the things that, we want to do is we want to be respectful of confidentiality, even though they are hired by us and they are professionals. There is a degree of which I leave that up to the discretion of basically the operations of the day and how that happens. So no, to answer your question, no, there's no formal, you are in this classroom today and here's the things you need to know about the behaviors. I trust that part of what a teacher would do, if there's anything compelling that needs to happen, needs to be communicated, it's communicated to the teacher.
Other questions for John?
By the way, Ray, the internet is not revealing of any
Metrics.
reports on substitute teaching levels, which most of these questions we have in about 3 minutes, you can find the New York State official
It does
testing
the
score
same,
by
right, yeah.
district and whatever, so it doesn't look to me like it's reported in any obvious way.
More's the pity. Sue, treasurer's report?
Okay, the first report that, you see are the investment reports. We started out the month of October at $7,302,675.62. Put in $2,300,000, and we had, interest of 558, so we ended off the month, at $9,603,263.69.
Where did the 2.3 million come from?
I'm getting to that. So if you turn over to the multi-fund account, basically that 2.3 million came from taxes. Again, still collecting taxes in October. So if you look on the multi-fund under the general, you see that 1.2 million were received in taxes, and some other taxes were received at the end of September as well. So I did make a transfer, because we do get a little more interest in the investment accounts than we do in the multi-fund account. And in general, in the multi-fund account, we started out with 3.1 million. We had revenues of 1.3 million, and expenses, mostly due to the transfer to the investment accounts, of just over like 3.2 million. So we ended off the month in October at 1,164,307.26.
All right. Questions for Sue? If not, then resolve the Board of
So
Education.
the T3 was,
Yeah.
1/3 of it, or
One-
1,259 was this cycle's property taxes, but there was a bunch already sitting in the.
Yeah, we have, yeah, so basically, I usually try to move the money over into the investment accounts, because we do get a little more interest, in those accounts than the multi-fund account.
Resolve the Board of Education, Garrison Union Free School District accepts the treasurer's report for October 2017 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. No abstentions, no nays, excellent. Sue, you still got, we've got budget status, warrant reports, revenue status.
Yep, and,
Those are in your board docs as well.
yep, I'm not sure if anybody has any questions, but they all seem to be pretty much business as usual. On those reports, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Jumps out at us, Sue.
Nothing really was jumping out at me.
All right, in that.
I will note, I noticed in Laura's report, this just reminded me that the old school bus was disposed of for $2,000 in scrap metal, so I feel like we probably squeezed most of the value out of it.
Every last ounce. Sorry, so we're authorizing a budget transfer in the amount of $13,500.
Again, this is just miscellaneous line items. There's really nothing standing out that's causing this. It's just there were negative balances in the account, so we're covering them.
All right, so we need I got a resolution for that. Then you can talk about the next transfer of funds, which is a more substantive item. Anyway, resolve the Board of Education, Garrison Union Free School District approves budget transfer number 3 in the amount of $13,500.
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor? Aye. No abstentions, no nays. Okay, so the next one is also a transfer. So.
Yeah, this goes back to what voters voted for in May, if you recall. It was basically to roll over the capital funds into a new capital fund reserve. So basically, this is taking the old capital reserve funds, putting it into a new capital reserve. And after we closed the books from last year, we found that we could actually add $237,411 from last year's fund balance into the capital reserve. So those two amounts together give us about $48,000 that would be in the capital fund that can go towards future capital projects. So, we can still add to that. We still can go up to, since the voters approved up to $1 million, we still have another 550, just over 50,000 that we can add to that. So if at the end of this year we could, the board wants to add more funds to that, we can do that as well.
Questions on that, pursue? This is pursuant to the approval we got at last year in May, okay. And then resolve the Board of Education, Garrison Union Free School District hereby authorizes the transfer of $211,504 from the previous capital reserve fund, additions and alterations, and $237,411 from the assigned fund balance to the 2017 capital reserve fund as authorized by the voters in May of 2017. I need that.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No abstentions, no nays. We've got a couple SCAR, an individual getting multiple SCAR refunds, so resolve the Board of Education, Garrison Union Free School District hereby approves the refund of taxes as indicated in the following stipulations of settlement of small claims assessment review, that's SCAR, totaling $5,823.21, both to the same individual, Lorenz, for the 2016 school year, the amount of $2,676.76, and for 2017, $3,146.45. I need a, I had so moved.
Can we want to let people know what a STAR is?
SCAR, yes.
Sorry, SCAR.
I'm happy to, yes. Correct me if I stray here, Sue. This is if an individual taxpayer within the district petitions the court that his assessment was unfair or did not accurately reflect the value of his house, and petitions for a reassessment, and that reassessment in fact results in a lower tax bill, it's incumbent on the district to refund the difference between what the higher and the lower assessments were.
Yes.
What we're doing is formally approving what is otherwise a court-ordered disposition. So we do not have a say one way or the other in this so far. It is simply to note in the record that we've authorized the payment, we've acknowledged and authorized the payment. Did I say anything that was widely at variance with what SCAR is all about?
No, that's basically it. We have to give them back the money.
We gotta give it to them.
And then next year, the taxes get redistributed, so, if somebody's getting, a refund, everybody else in Garrison is basically.
That $5,823 is redistributed, it was basically covered by every other taxpayer in Garrison, so the levy doesn't change.
No.
So, okay.
I love the way that he admonished you to forgive him if he strays. I think that should be true for all of us.
Yeah, that's exactly. So sometimes
You got
making it up as I go along. All right, so we have a motion on the table. All those in favor? Aye.
I didn't hear a second, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Second.
Second, okay.
Oh, that's Beth, very good.
Thank you, Beth. Oh, well, we alluded to this earlier. The budget calendar is in your package. Laura, do you want to just review it with us very quickly? Give us a sense of the key dates, and then we'll put the resolution before the board.
We have 3 budget workshops for the public. Mine is on all these too. Well, we have a budget overview with the board, and our first one is January 17th, and that's really why Sue and I have started this data collection now, because that starts informing our overview and what our proposals are at that moment. And as you know, as Sue gets more information from the state, those numbers change. So as we're getting money, we're losing money, we're using some formulas, and that informs each overview that we have, that we present here in front of the board, as well as the workshops. And the workshops, like I said, there are 3 of them, and we use that time to inform the community, as well as to elicit ideas, recommendations, commendations. We answer their questions, we try to inform them, and just use that as well to inform the budget process. So you'll see, February 7th is another presentation for the board. The first budget workshop is February 15th, and that's at 7 p.m. here in the library. The next budget overview for the board is March 7th, and the next workshop number 2 is March 10th, and that's on a Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning. And then we traditionally workshop that takes place during a PTA meeting, and that's usually in the morning during the week. And we're working with PTA to give us a date. Let's see.
Oh,
I want-
sorry, I may have been jumping ahead. In the calendar, it indicates that so, at the risk of jumping too far ahead, the budget vote is on May 15th, Tuesday, May 15th. In this calendar, we're indicating that we are changing the start time of the budget vote from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m., and we'll run, as always, to 9 p.m. The reason for that is, finish that sentence.
Oh. Statistically speaking, that 6 o'clock, there were just a few people coming in to vote, and it was Ray.
Because I have to
And-
open the polls, so I
and-
open the polls and vote, and I'm one of 4. who
And
typically
Dick
vote for
Timmons, who
Dick
was our
Timmons.
director of facilities, who had to be here, and I think he brought his wife with him, or they met here as she was moving to work. And then a couple of parents, we think actually after 7 o'clock during arrival time. So there was just maybe 5 folks that were coming within those 2 hours, between 6 and 8.
Oh, and it's even fewer, if it's 5 between 6 and 8, it's
It's
obviously fewer than
6 and
between 6
7.
and 7, and I'm being one of them, so I'm all in favor of moving the time, but you should all be aware that we are suggesting that we move the time from 6 to 7 a.m.
And another key date is April 16th. That's the candidates nominating petitions are due. So if there are any new candidates interested for seats that may be available.
3 seats are available this year, correct? Beth, me,
James.
David, James. 3 years flew right by, didn't they? So three open seats, but yes, petitions have to be in by that date. So. Any other questions on the budget calendar? If not, then resolve the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby adopts the 2018-2019 budget calendar. I need a so moved.
So moved.
Second. There's no further discussion. All those in favor? Aye. No abstentions, no nays. Excellent. Consent agenda, we have,
I do have a question.
oh, yeah.
When are we voting on the PISA project?
We don't know yet.
We don't know. Okay.
There are any number of issues that go into the discussion of the timing of when we would vote to approve the PISA project and go to the public for approval. One of the things changing by the hour is going to be whether or not current tax reform bill that's in conference between the House and the Senate right now includes the exemption, continues the exemption for state and local property taxes, because that will have likely to have a substantial bearing about how people feel about approving bond issues. I'd say that it's purely a speculative matter, but it will be the first opportunity that taxpayers who no longer, if the property tax exclusion is in the bill, it'll be the first time taxpayers in New York State have to express their frustration with no longer being able to deduct their property taxes. So the question then becomes, do you want to then go out for capital authorization, capital bond authorization, or do you want to let that settle in a little bit? Not to be discussed at all tonight, because the question, it may well be, didn't we hear, I think I heard that the question was still somewhat open in the conference committee as of tonight.
I think they're coming to an agreement.
Corporate rate went up to 21%, top marginal tax rate came down a little bit, and I thought I heard there was some movement on
I
this
think
property
there's
tax
some movement that
exemption.
there's going to be an option for the deduction, whether you can take it or take the standard deduction or something good. Part of that whole proposal was that they were going to double the standard deduction.
Right.
So for some people, it might be more beneficial for them to do that, I guess.
You just have to vote for it to see what's in it.
Well, along those lines, the Fed increased rate. Federal Reserve increased rates.
Yep.
And I'm wondering if that would affect a bond, or how those.
Oh, yeah, I mean, the rates are gonna go, they seem like they're climbing slowly, so the rates, you know, that we're gonna borrow at is it's not gonna be the rates now, because the borrowing is gonna be 2 years from now. So
Right.
So you're
Well,
getting.
that-
So,
Right, yes,
and it's talking about at least the possibility of 3 more rate hikes in the coming year, so.
And I also think too, just along with that, is just the task force and the process itself may take longer. We just want to make sure that we're hearing voices, we're getting ideas, not hearing voices, hearing community's voices. Community's voices, getting ideas, and making sure that we have a strong plan before we go before the board and the community. So it may take a little longer, because right now, there are a lot of ideas out on the table, and we need to put it in a structured plan that makes sense for this school as well as to the taxpayers in the community. So it's happening slowly, because I always feel like you have to respect the process, and the process usually works, but sometimes it takes a little longer than we anticipate. So gotta remain flexible for that as well.
If it's okay, we have our consent agenda with relatively few items. So as a result, the Board of Education, the Garrison Union Free School District approves the consent agenda items 5, that's B through I, as presented. 1, accept the minutes of the November 15, 2017 board meeting, those are in your package. Approve CSE recommendations, also in your package. Appoint, I'll just read it right here. Approve the appointment of Mark DeCaro as a substitute bus driver / cleaner for the 2017-18 school year at the rate of $18 an hour. Approve the appointment of Nazim Baksh as a substitute cleaner for the 2017-18 school year at the hourly rate of $18. Approve the 2017-18 school year contracts for educational services with Hendrick Hudson Central School District for 2 individual students. Item G, approve the contract for health and welfare services with Dobbs Ferry Union Free School District for 10 students at a cost of $11,154.20 for the 2017-18 school year. That proposal, or that agreement, is in your package also. Accept the donation of an Ibanez IBZ-10 guitar amplifier as a donation to the music department from Ms. Breslin, from Karen Breslin. And item last, accept the donation of $1,000 from Scott and Melinda Higbee for the purchase of girls' basketball team uniforms. Very generous.
Very generous.
I'll take a so moved, and
So
then
moved.
Seconded.
any questions or comments on that? I think we all know
The health and welfare services contracts is probably like
Dobbs
good for
Ferry's
people to
master's
mention.
school, yeah.
That's, we are by law required to provide nurses or some sort of physical, what do they do, health exams and whatnot. So that's where that comes from.
Right. Otherwise, with appreciation to the Higbees in particular and to Ms. Breslin, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, no nays. We have just a couple of discussion items, actually only one discussion item, and that's committee minutes. That doesn't require a resolution. So there are 3 sets of committee minutes in your package: the Technology Committee, the Safety, Health, and Wellness Committee, and the Athletics Committee. Typically, our practice is if anybody on the board was in attendance at one of those meetings and has anything in particular like to call to our attention, this is the time to do it. Also, Laura, John, or anyone of the administrators who were there. Is anything in any of those committee minutes that we need to discussion on? If not,
Can I just like to ask a question? Looking at the, just glancing through who was present, it seems like looking at the technology, number of teachers, staff present, I don't see any parents on there. I'm curious, John, whether you've had any parents reach out to be on committees. I know at the open house there's usually sign-up sheets. In the past, I've been on different committees with other parents. Is that continuing? Are you seeing parents wanting to be involved in that way? Are they not? Are they just not able to make the meetings?
Rather than the usual way we did the signups, actually we emailed
Oh yeah, that's right.
a survey home this year to collect responses. We did get parent responses to all the committees that we have. We then, once we established all the committee dates, sent out an email through my office to all of those people, informing them of all the scheduled dates for all the committees. I'm not quite sure what the practice of individual committee chairs are in terms of setting out reminders. I'm the committee chair for environmental education. We have one tomorrow. I made sure that all the parent members were, provided with a reminder saying that there's a meeting tomorrow. So, and then we just basically run the meeting with whoever's present.
Some committees do attract a high level of parent attention and involvement, like for example the environmental, which was the school forest committee.
Are these minutes available on the website for parents to look?
Everything that we review here is available
there.
on there.
And they can use board docs too.
Right.
They're
Parents
under.
can?
Yep.
Sure.
That's when you authenticate.
Do they know how?
It just says, look at the agenda. You click on it and it shows up.
Okay, I've never tried. I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
There's an icon on the website, but also under district tab, those are the committees are
Gotcha.
there too.
I'm just always trying to figure out how to.
Yeah.
You hear parents want to be involved, and sometimes they don't really quite know how to get involved, and whether the committees is a good way to do it, going online is a good way to do it, simply talking to teachers is a good way to do it.
I think Courtney's pointing at some issue with just finding ways to target our communication more effectively. Is that fair?
I suppose, yeah.
I also think if folks have a question, just call us.
Yeah.
We'll help in any way we can. We'll direct you on the website, we'll teach you how to use school dismissal manager, we'll show you how to use board docs, we'll resend the survey, whatever folks need.
I wonder if it might be interesting if there could be a kind of pilot attempt to involve teachers invested. He said blankly.
I'm by no means expert on the topic, but I do suspect that anytime the solution to an issue involves a suggestion of giving teachers something more to do, and we probably haven't thought through other solutions as carefully as we should.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's why I use the word pilot.
Curb your enthusiasm.
I wouldn't say it'd be something to do, but I think there's a different kind of gravitas. I think, when we know that when a particular parent has a skill set that could benefit the school, I think it's heard differently when it comes from teachers. That's all. I think that's true.
We have
Your point is salient.
one action item, the buses. This is the transportation agreement with Hudson Valley Bus Company. Resolved, the Board of Education, Garrison Union Free School District approves the revised extension of the 2014 transportation contract with Hudson Valley Bus Company for the 2017-18 school year using the annual CPI as posted on the New York State Education Department website. The 2017-18 contract is calculated at a CPI of 1.8%, resulting in the estimated total transportation cost of $348,277.56. I need a so moved.
So moved.
I'll take a second, and now this is Sue. This is the basic contract. We're reaffirming the basic terms of the contract that's been in place since 2014-15. Correct?
Yeah, they've clarified their rules and procedural rules.
Mm-hmm.
We had it, in the beginning of the year, we had it as a 3-year, but working with the state ed, they said you can do a year to year, or you can have an extension of 3 to 5 years, but you need to have public notice. So there's a different procedure which there's no benefit to us except to use this.
So basically, what state ed is said is, look, if you're going to have a 3-year contract, you have to have a public hearing. If not, or go ahead, Sue.
I think when we looked into it, it could be part of the budget process, which it is, but it wasn't really clearly there as a line item saying that we were going to have a 3-year contract. with the bus company, and it's gonna cost the district that. So I think that was the distinguishing factor, if I recall.
And you had to show each year.
Is that something that came out in our, that's not the result of the audit, that's just guidance from state ed generally about transportation contracts?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think they're just sort of trying to clean up their systems, because we've been working on the same paperwork for years. We went back file after file, and I think they're just kind of cleaning up or have new people.
So our practice going forward is going to be to reaffirm this contract annually.
Correct.
Is this, when you do a multi-year contract, is there embedded contingencies for fluctuation in oil costs?
And CPI.
Oil cost?
Yeah, the cost of fuel.
Well,
Let's say there's like a,
transportation contract is strictly the transportation, because we buy the fuel. This district buys the fuel itself, so we're not getting the fuel from them. And the repairs on the buses basically are our responsibility as well. Well, not the repairs on those buses, but I mean the fuel and all that stuff, that actually comes from us. The repairs on our buses come from us. But-
yeah, I didn't know that.
So,
So, on our budget,
We pay for the gas?
yes. We actually.
I mean, it's
Well, I mean,
it's shocking, when I go to a taxi, I don't
we didn't
think,
they weren't
how much
giving
do I
it
owe
to
you for the
us,
gas,
yeah.
you know, it's sort of wired into the deal.
Yes.
We do, we pay for all the fuel. We actually have our own tank at Hudson Valley Bus Company. You seem shocked.
Do we have to maintain
Surprise.
the tank?
What's that?
Do we have to maintain the tank?
That I am not really sure about, but, it is our tank, and I don't think we actually own the tank, but the fuel in it,
We
is,
own.
we buy.
And then
Yeah.
we see that in the budget what line is that in the budget? Is it the same line that's for fuel oil
Yes.
that runs
Okay,
the
alright.
school?
We do have, fuel oil, that heats the school is one line, and then we have, gasoline and diesel, so yeah, we pay for that. I mean, they fill the tank, I think at least twice a week. So we've been buying the diesel for the buses.
Electric buses, yeah.
Yeah. So the contract is really just the transportation for the buses and the drivers.
I get it. But just so, this I think I do know, the price that we pay for diesel going into our tank at Hudson Valley Bus is a negotiated, is a contracted price, right?
Yeah, we go over the state contract.
There's a state contract for the purchase, so
Yes.
it's not like,
It's not
we're
what
not,
we
it's
pay
not like
at the
we're paying
pump,
what the
no.
price that changes at
And
the
we
pump
don't
every
pay the
week.
taxes on
Right.
the either, so.
Got it.
Like, we just bought fuel oil, and I wanna say that, the fuel oil, I think was $2.07 a gallon.
Not what any one of us would get if we bought it from, because we got all the time, got it,
Yeah.
okay. I think we had, so moved and a second, right? All those in favor?
Aye.
So all done, right?
Wow,
Aye.
sorry.
No extensions on that, like I said, we learn something new every day, every meeting. All right, external auditors. Resolved, the Board of Education of the Garrison Union Free School District hereby accepts the proposal from PKF O'Connor Davies LLP Accountants and Advisors to perform external audit services for the year ending June 30, 2018 at a fee of $27,000 with an option to renew for the years ending June 30, 2019, also $27,000, 2020 at $27,500, 2021 at $28,000, and 2022 at $28,500. I need a so moved.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second?
Sue, Laura, anything that we need, this is O'Connor Davies,
Yep.
and so
We
they,
did put out an RFP, only O'Connor Davies, replied, and, actually for 2 years is sticking with the same price that we're paying now, which, all those years are less than what we paid 5 years ago, so.
right, okay. All those in favor? Aye. No abstentions, no nays, oh, who's the bus? Authorize the disposal of district property, resolve the Board of Education, Garrison Union Free School District authorize, oh, it's not the bus, sorry, it's Smart Board, sorry, I thought we,
We already resolved
we
to
did the
sell the
bus,
bus.
that's right, we did, that's right. The Board of Education, the Garrison Union Free School District authorizes the disposal of 22 smart boards in accordance with Board Policy 5250. We talked about that earlier with Laura. I need a so moved.
So moved. Second.
Okay, you got it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions, no nays. Oh, and this is a GSEF. We're authorizing the superintendent to accept donations. Whereas the Garrison Children's Education Fund was established to support the Garrison Union Free School District, and whereas the Education Fund provides funding to enrich the educational experience of Garrison children in grades K through 12, and whereas the district is appreciative of the Education Fund's donation, and the board would like to accept and acknowledge such donations, therefore be it resolved, the Board of Education, the Garrison Union Free School District hereby authorizes the superintendent of schools to accept on its behalf donations from the Education Fund throughout the 2017 and 18 school year.
So moved.
Give me a second.
Seconded.
Other than to say with deep appreciation to the fund, all those in favor?
Aye.
No abstentions, no nays. Thank you again. That concludes the business portion of the meeting. Now we're up to public comment. Any public comments? Board member comment. Sorry,
Go
I'd
ahead.
like to quickly.
Just as she opened.
All right, no, that's right. Board member comment. If anyone has anything.
Actually, I have a suggestion. You talked about how there are so many metrics. Well, there is actually one metric that I thought about the other day that we don't do, and that I think would provide useful information for all of us. As far as I know, we don't keep track in a systematic way of the parents who have chosen to opt out of the Garrison School and go elsewhere. And it strikes me that we could probably learn something from that. I mean, that's useful information for us. I mean, it may not necessarily be the kind of information that we love to hear, but nonetheless, it's important information, and we ought to, I think, have a systematic way of getting it. You know, so that's it. That's my suggestion. That we figure out some kind of a procedure whereby we could talk to. We have to have this thing organized so that somebody's responsibility, and there's a way to do it that's comfortable for all concerned. But I think that that the benefits of doing it outweigh the time and whatever cost there is. Thoughts?
Just one to add on, which is defer to Laura and John on the mechanics of tracking, but I would actually suggest almost more helpful in addition to the tracking is, you know, in the business world, when someone leaves your company, usually good companies do an exit interview to understand what happened, why are you leaving, what's going on. I would think it would be helpful, Laura, for you to, not in an antagonistic way at all, but just in a kind of learning and growing. You moved your kid from here to next school. I'll volunteer to start, by the way, if you want. But, having moved one kid out this year, you know, how come, what can we learn in a private setting just for your ears or the two of you, however you want to do it, but it would be instructive.
And
Because I think a lot of people who do leave for whatever reason leave, and you never, you may have a guess, or you may have a sense, or you may know because they talk to you, but you may well not, you know.
We often do have those conversations. I don't know if it's systematic, but when families do leave or make decisions to move to another school, they're very heartfelt conversations because they do love this district. Sometimes it's just not providing their child with what they deem important, or there may be a stronger program somewhere else. But we sort of do know why parents are leaving. I don't know why parents chose not the Garrison School if they've never been here before. If their children weren't here and they're new and they decided to go to another school.
No, I'm not talking about that. And I'm not talking about you having a one-on-one with a parent whose child is leaving. I'm saying that there may be some value for the board. And I think that where it's convenient and doesn't violate confidentiality, where people are comfortable sharing that information, that we should have some kind of regular review of why people choose to leave to pull their kid out of the Garrison school. I don't know, it's not happening it's not like there's a run from the school, but it does happen. As some of us know very personally, right? I mean, like to know why people make that choice, and we could probably gain some useful knowledge from that. That's all.
I think that, I think whenever you have a child move from one starting out in a private setting and moving into the public setting, that's useful information as well. I mean, migration tells us a lot sometimes, right? I would also look I think it's just a larger question of being reflective and having as much information about what the experience is here for parents and for students, right? So, looking at the 9th grade is a great way to do that in public and private settings, the wisdom of Ray Jr., and his view on things, it would be important. The people that are looking back from 10th grade, the graduates, giving feedback. What was your experience? What did you feel prepared with? What do you feel like? What would you have liked to see done differently? Those kind of conversations are important, and usually we get fairly positive feedback when we go over to Highland, to O'Neill, or to Haldane and ask those questions. But those parents that are going to private secondary schools, we don't always have those conversations necessarily, and I think it'd be good.
I think that's a great idea, but that's a slightly different procedure. I
Sure.
think the idea of, because in a sense the kids who attend the school are clients of the school, and I think it's worth knowing from, I don't know what grade on, but how things are going for them. I mean, if they find the class not satisfying or falling short or particularly great, then their opinions ought to be solicited. They are the clients, after all, right? I mean, at some level, that's what they are. But that's a somewhat separate issue than actually systematically, going after parents who
Experience attrition. But I think that when we talk about systematizing, I would be happy with, when we do either at the beginning of the school year or at the end of the school year, when we do a look back and summary, we've talked about doing another data presentation on towards the end of the year. Here's how we did this year. If a component of that discussion would be, over the course of the school year, we had X number of departures, right? The reasons for those departures were parent relocated for another job, parent relocated to take care of elder parents, parents transferred child to other district or private schools.
Kid
And
wanted to wrestle.
the reasons we heard, right, the kids wanted to go wrestling, right? The reasons we heard were the following. We had an opportunity to speak with some number, and these are the reasons that came up time to time, most frequently. I think I would be satisfied with that, and I would be satisfied with that if, and I have no reason to doubt it wouldn't be, to the extent we heard that there were constructive comments made about how the experience could have been better and that they left but for those kind of improvements, that would be shared. My guys' series of reports on net changes in enrollment on anything close to something other than an annual basis. So I would not expect this, every time somebody leaves, for John and Laura to have to come back to the board and report that the Smiths left because the kid wasn't reading at grade level, or whatever, on a monthly basis, or every time it happens, that's all.
I don't think this is going to be a terribly onerous.
No, in fact, I don't think it's going to be onerous either, because I suspect what you're going to find is that on a net basis, the kind of attrition we're talking about is the kind of things that gets measured on sort of one hand. And because that sample is that small, the information is valuable, if not necessary.
I'm just looking to enhance our understanding of why.
Absolutely.
What's going on.
Yeah.
Well, it's almost a facto in, right?
Statistics.
I mean, other than the odd, somebody leaves after 3 weeks or
Leaves.
something.
Since in the first half of this year, student population has grown by 10 students. So we started at 2.5, or 2.15. So if we're looking at we're actually not looking at a trend of attrition, we're looking at a trend of.
And John, were those, I actually didn't know that, this is fascinating, was that people moving into the district mid-cycle? Just generally, what was?
So we've added 10 since the beginning of the school year?
Wow, it's weird and good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
And
people
even when
move,
we
you
had
know,
our
what do you
forum
know?
walkthrough, 2 new
New soccer
families to
player.
the district came. They had infants, but they're shopping for a new home and a district.
Yeah,
a
that's
school
great.
district.
And by the way, when I said, exit interview, I didn't mean to suggest a super
No, no.
brief formality, more if someone
If
left
you
that you
hear-
hadn't already talked to and you sort of didn't know, just ask them. If they're not willing to talk to you, so be it.
Yeah.
But, hey, you're leaving, we'd just love to understand why, because it's helpful lesson, and just make sure you have some idea, right?
Even
If they say, I don't want to talk about
And
it,
being able to use that information as we
Exactly.
make decisions going
exactly, I
forward.
think most people would be perfectly happy to talk to you and explain,
Yeah, I agree.
Probably 80% of them already have, and so,
Other comments?
I just have 2 brief things. One is that the onboard newsletter, I guess, that we get in the mail actually is we don't always look at that. Well, at least I don't always, I tend to look at it for whatever reason, but that has a couple really good articles in it. One is on the role of social media and depression, and it's an important thing for us to understand as social media becomes more and more the norm in middle school and elementary school. So I think it's very important to understand the relationship between social media and how kids at risk can amplify their diagnoses via social media, and it's very much a concern for them. So that article's in there. There's some other articles as well. I do want to point out a sad moment. It is the 5th anniversary of the Sandy Hook massacre is this week, and whatever policy issues or political wrangling, it certainly was a turning point for me personally on the nature of our relationships in the community, and that we should be looking toward each other and leads. And I think it's incumbent upon us to think of ourselves as some sort of intersection where the community and the school come together. And I think it's important for us to always have our ears open about kids and parents and community members who are particularly have particular concerns. So just, I think about it a lot, working in a school environment. I think about it often because universities don't have the kinds of elementary schools do. We are a wide open facility, open to the public, and so we are vulnerable in many ways, but at the same time, we are also, I think about it in relationship to my children, but I think about it as important for us just to be aware of each other's condition. Right now I'm feeling pretty good, but I don't always feel good. So we should always be aware of each other's condition because we're all going through something. And, and it's important to know that, okay? That's it.
Did we want to touch on the visits to, the upcoming visits to O'Neill and/or visit, not and/or, the visit to, the invitation we have to visit O'Neill once again for a shared board meeting with they're proposing a date in January, I think. And Haldane is, we have an option, we can invite them
We're still
here.
discussing.
And we're still discussing what we'd like to see. I think the general sense was last year, the O'Neill presentations were quite good. The spirit was right, the feelings were good, the substance of the presentations were fine. It was great to hear from the kids, and we'd like to see something like that if we were to go there, or if we were to go here. But we don't have dates for either yet.
We have a date with O'Neill.
Okay. And
Date
it'll be
with
on, it'll
O'Neill.
be on, it'll be on O'Neill, there you go.
But not Haldane yet.
And we're working on Haldane,
Yeah.
okay.
And, okay, they're searching For all sorts of things at Haldane, right?
Superintendent search is ongoing,
Okay.
using the same team that we used, by the way.
Okay. Just curious about that, the status of that. No update on it?
I think there's still, the last I saw is,
CPCNR.
they're still taking public comment and doing this sort of information gathering assessment that we did ahead of our search, and that they did with their last search. too.
Gotcha.
If there's no other board member comment, we're going to adjourn to executive session. So, resolve the Board of Education of Garrison Union Free School District adjourns its December 13th regular meeting to executive session to discuss personnel matters. Anita, so moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Anita, second.
Seconded.
Thank you all. Oh,
Aye.
vote. All in favor say aye.
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 I believe you can